From the outside, my life looked perfect to everyone who knew us. I had a husband people admired, a home that felt secure, financial comfort, and a marriage others openly envied. Friends called me blessed, and strangers called me lucky. They never noticed the quiet dinners where forks scraped plates louder than conversation. They never saw how his eyes drifted past me, how success slowly rewrote his priorities and erased tenderness from his voice. The man who once asked about my dreams now spoke only about himself. I ignored the warning signs because I believed real love required patience, sacrifice, and silence. I told myself strong women endure storms without complaint. I convinced myself loyalty meant staying, even when I felt invisible. Each day, I chose hope over honesty, comfort over confrontation. I smiled in public and shrank in private, afraid that acknowledging the truth would shatter everything we had built. I didn't realize that pretending was already destroying me. What I called endurance was actually fear, and what I defended as love was slowly becoming my greatest mistake ever. Daniel used to look at me like I was the only woman who existed. In those early years, his attention felt effortless and sincere, like love that didn't need reminders. Over time, that look faded into habit. I became predictable to him, safe and familiar, no longer exciting. Compliments disappeared and conversations turned mechanical, focused on schedules, bills, and responsibilities. Affection became rare and conditional. I blamed his workload, the pressure of providing, the stress that success brings. I told myself marriages naturally lose passion and mature into routine. Whenever doubt surfaced, I silenced it with excuses. I reminded myself that stability mattered more than romance. Still, something inside me ached whenever he scrolled his phone instead of meeting my eyes. I felt myself shrinking to fit the version of a wife he seemed comfortable ignoring. I didn't know then that routine can be dangerous when only one person feels secure. That phase I kept defending had a name I refused to speak. It was betrayal, quietly growing where love once lived and destroying my trust without mercy slowly forever. It started with his phone, a small object that suddenly controlled our home. It was always face down, always locked, always protected like a secret. He stepped outside to take calls and smiled at messages he refused to explain. Late-night meetings appeared on his calendar, meetings that never existed before. Sometimes he came home smelling unfamiliar, like a perfume that did not belong to me. When I asked simple questions, he laughed and called me insecure, turning my concern into a joke. I hated how easily he dismissed me. Doubt crept into my thoughts, but I pushed it away because trusting him felt safer than confronting the truth. I didn't want to be the suspicious wife, the one who ruins peace with questions. So I swallowed my instincts and convinced myself I was imagining things. Every red flag waved directly in front of me, and I chose blindness. I didn't realize that denial is also a decision, and it always comes with consequences that reshape lives, destroy trust, and expose painful truths eventually without mercy, regret, or warning signs ignored. I wasn't searching for proof, and that is what made the discovery cruel. Fate placed the truth directly into my hands one ordinary evening. His phone lit up while he was in the shower, vibrating with urgency. A single message appeared on the screen, glowing like a confession. "I missed last night already." In that moment, my hands trembled, but my mind became strangely calm. I unlocked the phone and stepped into a reality I never imagined. There were photos I could never unsee, that voice notes filled with intimacy, and promises meant for another woman. Each message felt like a blade, sharp and precise. My husband wasn't confused or lonely. He was intentional and careful. He had created an entire life where I did not exist. When he stepped out of the bathroom smiling, I looked at him differently. The man I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who had mastered deception. In silence, my heart broke slowly, processing truths that would permanently redefine trust, marriage, loyalty, identity, and the woman I was becoming alone forever inside myself then. She was younger, confident, and effortlessly carefree, everything he seemed to crave. He called her his escape, his breath of fresh air from responsibility. What hurt most wasn't her appearance or charm. It was how easily he risked our shared history for excitement. Years of sacrifice, memories, and loyalty were traded for secrecy and thrill. I studied their messages and realized he wasn't confused or manipulated. He chose her deliberately. Every lie required effort, and he gave that effort willingly. That understanding shattered the version of him I had protected in my mind. I stopped blaming stress, temptation, or circumstance. This was a choice made by a man who believed he deserved more than commitment. In that moment, love transformed into clarity. I saw him without excuses, without illusions. Betrayal no longer felt like an accident. It felt like a decision he made repeatedly, knowing the cost. And for the first time, I stopped asking why she existed. The real question became why I stayed loving someone who willingly sacrificed me for ego, desire, validation, and temporary attention alone silently. I didn't confront him, even when my chest felt heavy with unshed words. I didn't cry in front of him or demand explanations. Instead, I played my role perfectly, like an actress who knew the script too well. I smiled when he entered the room, cooked his favorite meals, and listened while he spoke about his day. I asked questions that showed interest and offered support without suspicion. I let him believe he was smarter than me, more careful, always one step ahead. Silence became my shield and my weapon. In that quiet space, I began to observe everything with ruthless clarity. I noticed patterns, excuses, and habits I had once ignored. I stopped seeing him through love and started seeing him through truth. Every lie stood out clearly. Every manipulation exposed itself. I was no longer emotionally attached to his words. I studied his movements, his moods, and his confidence. While he thought I was blind, I was awake. While he felt secure, I was preparing myself. My silence wasn't weakness. It was the beginning of my quiet freedom. Daniel believed he built our life alone, brick by brick, through his own ambition. He loved telling people how he struggled, how he sacrificed, how he earned everything himself. What he forgot was who stood behind him when nothing worked. He forgot who funded his first business when banks refused him. He forgot who introduced him to investors and vouched for his character. He forgot who signed documents without question because trust felt natural then. I wasn't just his wife cheering from the sidelines. I was his foundation, steady and unseen. Every opportunity he praised himself for had my fingerprints on it. Every door he walked through had been opened with my connections. He grew confident enough to believe I was replaceable, that my support was guaranteed and permanent. But foundations are not decorations. They carry weight, and they can be removed. I realized my value didn't depend on his recognition. It existed regardless of his memory. The moment I accepted that truth, power quietly shifted. He was standing tall only because I was still holding everything beneath him together. I consulted lawyers quietly, choosing discretion over emotion. I scheduled meetings during lunch hours and deleted call logs afterward. I reviewed documents carefully, reading every clause I once ignored out of trust. I learned my rights, my protections, and my leverage. Each signature he had rushed through without explanation became a shield around me. I discovered accounts, ownership structures, and legal details that told a different story than the one he bragged about. I wasn't planning revenge or destruction. I was securing my future with calm precision. Knowledge replaced fear, and preparation replaced pain. I stopped imagining worst outcomes because I was actively shaping better ones. At night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I studied paperwork and timelines. I built a plan that required patience, silence, and discipline. Every step brought clarity and strength. I wasn't acting out of anger. I was acting out of self-respect. This quiet preparation gave me confidence he never noticed. While he believed nothing had changed, everything already had. The calm I carried inside made my decisions steady, deliberate, and impossible to undo completely. As my silence continued, his confidence grew sharper and louder. He stayed out longer without excuses, and came home colder each time. He stopped pretending to care whether I noticed. He believed my calm meant acceptance, forgiveness, or weakness. He laughed more, guarded his phone less, and moved like a man who felt untouchable. Watching him felt surreal, like observing a stranger destroy himself slowly. What he didn't realize was that I had already emotionally divorced him. My heart no longer reacted to his absence or lies. I detached quietly, piece by piece. While he felt powerful, I felt free. I stopped expecting honesty, affection, or effort. I stopped waiting for explanations. The man I once loved no longer held authority over my emotions. His arrogance blinded him to my transformation. He thought he had control because I didn't argue. But silence doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it means departure, has already happened. By the time he noticed the distance, it was permanent. I had crossed a line inside myself, where return, repair, and reconciliation no longer existed at all. I filed for divorce on a Tuesday morning, calm and certain. There was no warning and no dramatic confrontation. I signed the papers with steady hands and a clear mind. That same day, his business accounts were frozen, following legal processes he never bothered to understand. Timing matters when truth finally speaks. He came home that evening expecting routine and comfort. Instead, he walked into silence and unfamiliar tension. Confusion crossed his face before fear replaced it. He asked questions I didn't rush to answer. Watching realization settle into his expression felt surreal. The life he trusted suddenly felt unstable beneath his feet. For the first time, he wasn't in control of the narrative. I didn't raise my voice or explain myself excessively. The work had already been done quietly. Consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they arrive as paperwork, bank alerts, and irreversible decisions. That night marked the end of his illusion and the beginning of my freedom. Everything he loved depended on stability. And stability vanished the moment accountability finally entered our shared reality without warning or mercy. I will never forget the look on his face when reality finally settled in. His confidence drained slowly as the truth unfolded, piece by piece, without mercy. The house he called his pride was not legally his. The company he boasted about belonged elsewhere. The lifestyle he flaunted online was built on foundations he never secured. For the first time in years, his voice shook when he spoke. He asked questions he should have asked long ago. I watched him struggle to understand documents he had ignored, signatures he never read, warnings he dismissed. Panic replaced arrogance, and silence replaced authority. In that moment, power shifted completely. I felt no triumph, only clarity. This was not revenge, it was consequence. He finally saw the cost of his choices reflected back at him. His hands trembled as certainty collapsed around him. The man who once felt untouchable now looked small. Reality arrives without emotion or apology. That day, I understood something deeply. Truth does not shout. It waits patiently until denial runs out, then speaks all at once. Love did not survive consequences, and that truth revealed itself quickly. When money vanished, comfort followed, and loyalty disappeared soon after. Her calls stopped coming, her messages became shorter, then silent. Promises she once whispered with confidence suddenly meant nothing. I watched from a distance as his illusion of romance collapsed under pressure. What they shared thrived on convenience, secrecy, and reward. Once those benefits disappeared, so did commitment. I learned something powerful in that quiet unraveling. Some relationships exist only while circumstances are favorable. They cannot endure responsibility, sacrifice, or accountability. There was no dramatic goodbye or emotional closure. She simply faded away, leaving him alone with consequences he created. He tried explaining her absence as misunderstanding, bad timing, or stress. The truth was obvious. Real love remains when comfort leaves. What he had was conditional attachment, not devotion. That realization freed me completely. I no longer compared myself or questioned my worth. I saw clearly that what he risked everything for was never strong enough to survive reality or hardship, without illusion or excuses. Daniel begged in ways I never imagined hearing. His apologies came in waves, filled with desperation and regret. He cried openly, promising therapy, transparency, and permanent change. He swore he would rebuild trust and become the man I deserved. I listened calmly, without interruption or anger. To my surprise, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no longing. Something essential had already left me. Once respect is broken, love does not return the same way. It relocates quietly and permanently. His words sounded rehearsed, shaped by fear rather than understanding. I recognized the difference immediately. He wasn't mourning what he lost emotionally. He was mourning the life he no longer controlled. I realized forgiveness does not require reconciliation. I could acknowledge his pain without sacrificing myself again. Silence filled the space where my heart once responded. I wasn't cold. I was done. Begging sounds different when love is gone. It becomes noise rather than meaning. That moment confirmed my decision more clearly than betrayal ever could. I had already moved forward internally long before he noticed I was gone. Finally. The questions started quietly, then spread quickly. Friends asked what happened, colleagues whispered, and familiar faces looked at him differently. His reputation, once carefully polished, began to crumble under scrutiny. The same people who praised his success now exchanged glances and rumors. I chose silence. I did not defend myself or explain his actions. I did not expose details or seek sympathy. Dignity became my loudest statement. Watching consequences unfold publicly was uncomfortable but necessary. Truth has weight, and it reshapes perception over time. He struggled with the loss of admiration more than the loss of marriage. Validation had fueled him for years. Without it, he seemed lost. I learned character reveals itself when applause stops. I focused on my healing, refusing to engage in public narratives. I didn't need to prove anything. Those who mattered understood without explanation. Those who didn't were irrelevant. Silence protected my peace while noise consumed him. In the end, I learned integrity outlasts reputation. One survives quietly, while the other collapses loudly. I walked forward untouched, while he remained trapped inside the image he could no longer maintain. He moved into a small rented apartment on the other side of town. No security gate, no luxury furniture, no familiar comforts. From a life of excess, he entered a season of survival. From admired, he became unnoticed. From confident, he became cautious. I saw the change in his posture, his voice, and his expectations. The world treated him differently without status. I didn't celebrate his fall or speak badly about him. I simply let distance exist. I didn't save him either. Consequences belong to the choices that create them. He called occasionally, not for love, but reassurance. I didn't answer. My silence wasn't punishment. It was closure. I learned rescuing someone from lessons only delays growth. That apartment symbolized more than loss. It represented accountability. Meanwhile, my life became lighter without chaos. Peace replaced tension. Space replaced anxiety. I understood endings don't always come with anger. Sometimes they arrive quietly, firmly, and without return. I walked away without hatred, carrying wisdom. He stayed behind with memories of a life he once loved but failed to protect. Eventually, peacefully alone, he began calling late at night, when the world was quiet and distractions disappeared. Not because he missed me, but because he missed comfort, familiarity, and someone who once absorbed his chaos without question. His voice sounded smaller, uncertain, stripped of authority. I recognized that tone immediately. It wasn't love reaching out. It was loneliness demanding relief. I watched the phone light up and let it ring. At first, ignoring him felt unnatural, even cruel. Then it felt necessary. Loneliness has a price, and for years I had been paying his. I refused to continue. Each unanswered call strengthened my resolve. Silence taught him what words never could. I understood that answering would reopen wounds I had already closed. Comfort is powerful, and losing it exposes truth. I wasn't responsible for easing the emptiness he created. That space belonged to him now. I slept peacefully, knowing boundaries protect healing. Loneliness isn't punishment. It's consequence. It forces reflection and accountability. That night, I learned something final. Some doors must remain closed, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for the life I was rebuilding without his shadow. With him gone, silence returned to my mornings, gentle and unbroken. I woke without anxiety, without waiting for explanations or disappointment. My laughter returned slowly, then fully, surprising me each time. I enjoyed small moments again, like sunlight through windows and quiet cups of coffee. I rediscovered who I was before I became smaller to keep someone else comfortable. Peace felt unfamiliar at first, then addictive. I realized how heavy love becomes when it's one-sided, when effort flows in only one direction. I no longer monitored my words or measured my worth through someone else's attention. My life expanded naturally, without permission. Friends noticed the difference in my voice. I noticed the difference in my breathing. Healing didn't arrive dramatically. It settled in gradually, like calm after a long storm. I stopped revisiting the past and started designing my future. Strength grew where doubt once lived. I understood that love should feel safe, not exhausting. Losing him didn't empty me, it made space. In that space I found clarity, confidence, and a version of myself that no longer begged to be chosen by someone who never deserved her loyalty. For a brief moment, guilt knocked gently, disguised as compassion. It whispered that maybe I should have stayed longer, tried harder, forgiven faster. I allowed the thought to pass through me without judgment. Then I remembered the lies spoken effortlessly. I remembered the disrespect delivered casually. I remembered the choices made repeatedly, not accidentally. Guilt lost its voice immediately. Accountability matters, and so does memory. I wasn't heartless for leaving. I was honest with myself. Staying would have meant abandoning my dignity. I refused to rewrite history to soothe someone else's regret. Guilt left quietly once truth entered the room. I learned that compassion does not require self-destruction. Forgiveness does not require reunion. I could acknowledge pain without reopening doors. That realization freed me from unnecessary responsibility. His consequences were not my burden. My healing was my priority. I chose clarity over confusion, peace over performance. Some lessons only arrive when guilt is dismissed and self-respect takes its place. That day I understood growth requires courage, not sacrifice without limit. Walking away was not cruelty, it was survival, wisdom, and the beginning of lasting emotional freedom. I didn't post quotes about healing or strength. I didn't announce my pain or explain my decisions publicly. Healing didn't need an audience. Silence became my boundary and my protection. While others speculated and assumed, I focused inward. Strength doesn't always look loud or confrontational. Sometimes it looks like restraint. I chose privacy over validation and dignity over drama. I understood that explanations invite debate, and my life was no longer open for discussion. Each quiet day rebuilt me slowly. I invested energy into myself rather than narratives. I stopped correcting misunderstandings that didn't matter. Truth has a way of surfacing without help. I learned that peace grows faster when it's not interrupted by noise. Silence allowed clarity to deepen. It allowed wounds to close properly. I wasn't hiding. I was healing. There's power in not needing to prove anything. Strength looks like walking forward without dragging the past behind you. It looks like choosing growth over reaction. My silence wasn't weakness. It was confidence. It was closure. And it was the strongest decision I made throughout the entire journey of reclaiming myself completely. Daniel now lives cautiously, aware of limits he once ignored. He counts expenses carefully, questioning purchases that once felt effortless. He watches others live the life he believed was permanent. Invitations slow down. Attention fades. Consequences are patient, arriving slowly but staying permanently. He has time now to reflect, without distractions or applause. Reality is quieter than success, but far more honest. I don't monitor his life or celebrate his discomfort. I simply observe from a distance, detached and at peace. The gap between who he was and who he is now teaches its own lesson. Status is temporary. Character is not. I moved forward without bitterness, carrying wisdom instead. He remains where choices left him. This isn't revenge. It's balance. Life corrects itself eventually. I learned that endings are not failures. They are redirections. While he adjusts to limitation, I expand into freedom. Our paths no longer intersect emotionally. I wish him accountability, not harm. His new reality belongs to him alone. Mine belongs to growth, peace, and the life I reclaimed by choosing myself when it mattered most. Betrayal taught me lessons no book ever could. It showed me that love should never demand silence, shrinking, or self-erasure. Real love strengthens identity instead of slowly dissolving it. Loyalty should never be begged for, negotiated, or earned through suffering. The moment you must convince someone to respect you, something essential is already broken. I learned that boundaries are not walls. They are doors that decide who deserves access. Betrayal stripped away illusions I protected for years. It forced me to confront truths I avoided because comfort felt safer than honesty. I discovered my worth was never dependent on being chosen. It existed long before betrayal revealed itself. Pain became a teacher, not a punishment. It refined my standards and clarified my values. I no longer confuse endurance with devotion. Love should feel mutual, secure, and kind. Anything less is not love, but attachment disguised as commitment. Betrayal hurt deeply, but it also awakened me. It reminded me that self-respect is non-negotiable. When loyalty disappears, walking away is not failure. It is wisdom finally taking control. In my life today, forgiveness came quietly, without applause or reconciliation. I forgave him because carrying resentment would have chained me to the past. Forgiveness freed my mind, softened my heart, and allowed healing to continue uninterrupted. But forgiveness did not mean returning. Returning would have trapped me inside a cycle already proven harmful. I understood that forgiveness and access are not the same. I could release anger without reopening wounds. I could wish him growth without sacrificing myself again. Love does not require repeated self-betrayal. Walking away was not punishment. It was protection. I learned that closure does not always involve conversation or agreement. Sometimes it comes from acceptance alone. I accepted that the marriage ended the moment trust was broken repeatedly. Forgiveness gave me peace. Distance preserved it. I stopped confusing compassion with obligation. Choosing myself was not selfish, it was necessary. I stepped forward lighter, unburdened by revenge or regret. Forgiving him closed the chapter. Refusing to return ensured the story did not repeat itself. That distinction saved my future. It became the boundary that protected my peace permanently and safely. Peace is expensive, and I finally understood its cost. It demands courage, honesty, and the willingness to disappoint others. Choosing peace meant releasing familiarity, comfort, and expectations built over years. It required me to walk away from what looked stable but felt destructive. I paid the price willingly because chaos was costing me more. Peace asked me to face fear without retreating. It asked me to sit with uncertainty rather than false security. Each step toward peace felt uncomfortable, then empowering. I learned that peace is not passive. It is an active choice made daily. It requires boundaries, discipline, and self-trust. I stopped negotiating my well-being for approval. I stopped sacrificing rest for validation. Peace rewarded me with clarity, balance, and emotional freedom. Life became quieter but richer. My mind felt lighter, my heart felt safer. Paying the price of peace gave me ownership of my life again. Nothing I lost compared to what I gained. When peace arrives, it stays only if you protect it. I protect it fiercely now, without apology or explanation, because survival taught me everything. To the woman I once was, I speak with honesty and compassion. I wish you had trusted your instincts sooner, without silencing them for comfort. You sensed the shifts, the distance, and the quiet disrespect long before proof appeared. You ignored yourself because you believed love required patience at any cost. I don't blame you. You were doing the best you could with what you knew then. I am proud of you for enduring without becoming bitter. I am proud of you for choosing growth when staying felt easier. Every tear, doubt, and moment of confusion shaped the woman I am now. You survived betrayal without losing kindness. You learned strength without becoming cruel. If I could speak to you then, I would tell you this. Trust yourself. Your intuition was never wrong. It was simply waiting for you to be ready. You were not weak. You were becoming. Today, I carry your lessons forward with gratitude. You walked through pain so I could walk into peace. That courage will always define us and guide my future with clarity, always. My husband's affair did not just end our marriage. It ended illusions, excuses, and the version of life he believed was guaranteed. His choices cost him the life he loved, the comfort he relied on, and the identity he protected. Betrayal rewrote both our futures differently. While he lost stability, I gained freedom. While he faced consequences, I found peace. The truth is simple and unchangeable. Actions carry weight long after secrets fade. His affair closed doors he can never reopen. It also opened doors I never knew existed. I walked away stronger, wiser, and grounded in self-respect. I no longer question my worth or silence my instincts. This ending was not tragedy. It was transformation. Love did not fail me. Betrayal revealed what love should never cost. I deserved honesty, loyalty, and effort without conditions. Losing him gave me myself back. That is the truth I stand in today. His life moved backward. Mine moved forward. And in that contrast, justice exists quietly, without celebration, anger, or regret, and dignity remained intact.